As a person who really likes making things with yarn, I also really like acquiring yarn, nice yarn, but for the lowest price possible. So I'm here today to talk to you about what is right now my favorite place to hunt really good quality hand-dyed yarn for an amazing price, which is Mercari. Welcome to Show and Tell Meg. I'm Megan, and I like to make things, particularly with yarn. I am a very avid knitter, crocheter, all the things, but I also feel that buying yarn is kind of a hobby in and of itself, depending on how you do it. I am not one of those people who buys yarn for a specific project. I am definitely a stasher. I have nothing against the people who go to stores with a specific project in mind and they buy exactly what they need and they leave and they're happy. That's wonderful. I'm happy for those people. But in my case, I live a pretty decent distance away from any local yarn store that would carry higher end yarns like wools and alpacas and silks or hand-dyed yarn. I live in a rural area, and so I really am at the mercy of big box stores. And as such, I have over time developed a pretty sizable stash because I always shop from my stash. When I'm looking at yarn, I typically am a big sale shopper, and so when there's a big sale, I have certain projects in mind that I know I'm looking for things for, or I have an idea of the types of projects that I've been liking making lately, and I look for things to go along those lines. So even if it's not something I'm going to work on right this second, I buy several projects ahead and always have that in mind as I'm making my purchases. So I'm not at the mercy of if I can afford this yarn at the moment that I want to make this project, or if it's available, if the color I want is anywhere to be found, etc. There's so many different variables that can make shopping for something specific very prohibitive in my experience. One of the biggest prohibitive aspects is definitely the cost, especially when you're talking about hand-dyed merino and that kind of thing. It seems like every other week I'm hearing about some new indie dyer who's like the coolest thing, right? That everybody suddenly wants their yarn. And I have purchased yarn directly from these indie dyers, and they're beautiful. I've even made videos about using fancy hand-dyed yarn. I have bought from these fancy indie dyers before, quite a few times, honestly. I have paid full price on occasion. I do like to take advantage of a sale here and there, but for the most part, if you're buying a hand-dyed indie skein, it's kind of someone like you and me. We're not talking some huge operation that there's lots of people involved. Sometimes it's just one person who's dyeing this yarn, and so they can't offer massive discounts because they have an overhead that they have to make a bottom line, right? About a year ago, I made a video all about how to find high-end yarn on a budget. And this video really took off. Like, I kind of can't believe how much that video was seen for my channel, which was amazing. I'm kind of glad that my price-conscious shopping could benefit other people out there. That's wonderful. And I still absolutely stand by every single one of those sources that I list on this video. So if you're interested in seeing that, I will link that in the cards above and in the description below. And one of those things that I did mention in that video is a secondhand selling site called Mercari. If you're not familiar with Mercari, they are a secondhand selling site similar to Depop and Poshmark and eBay, that kind of thing, where anybody can list. It's also free to join. I do have a referral link. It is a friend referral. So if you are interested in getting a free Mercari account, I will link my referral below. It's not an affiliate thing. I think if you use my link, then you get a little bit of money off, and then it gives me a little bit of money for a thank you kind of thing. So I'm not affiliated with Mercari at all. This is something that you as a person can send your friend link to anybody, and they just give it to you as that first time buy appreciative kind of thing. So I would be really appreciative if you use my link, but if not, I'm not being compensated in any way for making this video. This is legitimately just my favorite place to buy yarn. It is also a fantastic site if you have things that you want to sell. I always have stuff up there. I have clothes that I've worn, clothes that I have found at a thrift store that had tags on them and I thought were styles that people would still want to buy. And so I list them on Mercari. And one of the good slash bad things about Mercari, depending on how you look at it, is that you can keep your money from the things that you sell on Mercari in their network and buy other things on the site, and they don't charge you the same fees that they do if you're buying it with a credit card or something like that. So I kind of like to spend that money on yarn sometimes if I can find a really good de-stash, which I won't say happens all the time, but I will say summer seems to be de-stash season because, oh boy, have I found some amazing deals this summer on Mercari. All of this is indie hand-dyed yarn that I got for less than half of what it would cost if I was to go into a local yarn store or order it from the dyer. In this stack, I have Hedgehog Fibers, Lolo Did It, Suburban Stitcher, Republic of Wool, Woolen Vine, Fangirl Fibers, Knitted Wit, Hue Loco, Dream in Color, Zen Garden Yarns, Ba Yarns, just, oh my gosh, so many different brands that are beautiful. And normally I would not be purchasing in this kind of quantity for sure. I may buy one skein here and there. I have been known to occasionally purchase from these types of dyers, but by and large, it's not something that I buy a ton, mostly because I have a pretty huge stash. And so I can't necessarily justify running out and spending the $30 to $40 a skein that some of these places charge for their yarn. Please don't take this as any kind of comment that like hand-dyed yarn is too expensive. I understand the cost. I absolutely get that. I am not faulting these dyers for charging what they do. They deserve the money for their labor. It can just be really hard to swallow that you could be spending $200 on one sweater worth of yarn if you go to the dyer to buy these things. What I have here are mostly single skeins of fingering weight yarn that has all been hand dyed, and it is just beautiful. Isn't it just so aesthetic? I love to look at yarn like this. So now that we have ogled my yarn, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of these purchases that I made and what it is that I look for, give you kind of a rundown of how you can get these kinds of deals for yourself. The way that Mercari works is you, as the seller, put your stuff on their website, you take pictures, you list what it is that you're selling, give as much description as you can. You have to weigh it so that you know how much the package itself is going to weigh, and that's how Mercari prices the shipping for you. Mercari will suggest prices to you based on kind of things that they know have sold in their site. It's not always 100% accurate, especially if you have some of these like indie dyed yarn brands, I will tell you, but it will at least give you a suggestion of what the average going rate has been. You, as the seller, get to dictate the price completely though. So you have certain fees that are associated with you selling the yarn. You agree to that when you're listing everything, but you set the price, you say how much it weighs so that people know how much the shipping will be, and then you list it and Mercari does the rest. As a buyer of yarn, you want to kind of know certain keywords of what you're looking for. So tip number one is know the type of yarn you are looking for. In my case, I know realistically my favorite thing to knit with is fingering weight yarn. So I don't type in fingering weight all the time. Sometimes I do, but my biggest search that got me all of this is to type in sock yarn. Because there's kind of, some people call it a 1 weight or a 2 weight. Some people call it fingering weight. Some people call it sock yarn. If it's made for socks, it's going to say sock yarn. It's going to have sock somewhere in the title of the yarn, something like that. So sock yarn kind of encompasses all the different yarns that I like to knit with the most. So that is typically what I search for. That does not mean that everything I am shown is a deal. So this is where you have to be a little bit of an online detective to check your pricing. I like to put in sock yarn, and it's going to show all the different things listed that are sock yarn. And to be perfectly honest, some people are an absolute ripoff of what they want to get for their yarn on Mercari. I like to look up each individual item to see what it costs new before I commit to buying it secondhand, just in case the person is charging me the same price that I would have gotten if I bought it new. And this is so common, I can't even describe to you. Just because it's on a secondhand site doesn't mean that the person isn't trying to get what they paid or even a little bit more than what they paid. So you have to kind of pay attention to that. It's definitely something that even if I really like the yarn, it's really not a temptation for me. Why would I spend more or the same on something used that I could buy new for the same or less money? It just doesn't make any sense. So you need to pay attention to how much they're asking. Look up any kind of yarn that you're trying to buy and make sure that it is a good deal for what it is. But the site itself also charges what they call a buyer protection fee. And this now apparently encompasses if you're not happy and want to return it, they will take care of that instead of you having to hash it out with the seller, which I haven't had any issues whatsoever, but that's, I guess, kind of nice that you have this, that you have this like corporate backing on your purchases, maybe. I don't know. Like I say, I've never had anything come in with any kind of problem that I had to return it. But I think it even encompasses if you're buying clothes, if it doesn't fit, that they will take it back. So that's how they justify charging you that fee. But it's something that you need to pay attention to. So just because something says $29 for this listing, you have to also look and see what the buyer protection fee is going to be, because that's going to be an added cost. Also, scroll all the way down and see what the shipping cost is. I like to factor that in on every single purchase. There are some people who do free shipping, and that's fantastic. Then it makes it really easy. I know that it's just the cost of the listing plus that buyer protection fee, which is, if it's a $30 thing, it's like $1.50 or something. It's not that much, but you can't be fooled by those lower prices, because by the time you get to the end of the purchase, it is going to be higher. So that's something else. Pay attention to all the different fees that are associated with purchasing on Mercari. You need to look at the cost of the listing, what is included in that listing, as well as what the buyer protection fee is and the shipping cost. And on that same vein, I will also buy multiple things from the same person because it will save me on shipping. Last year, when I got really heavy into selling things on Mercari, it was kind of last summer, honestly, that's when I started to notice people had yarn on Mercari, and I started looking. And one of the first yarn purchases I made was actually a bundle of a whole bunch of yarn. So I bought all of these skeins from the same person. And the advantage of doing that is these were, I think, 4 different listings on Mercari. And so with each one of those, if I had bought them separately, I would have had a separate shipping fee on every single one. But since they were all going to me, Mercari will upgrade the shipping and add all of that weight together and just make it one shipping label for all the different listings, and they call it a bundle. So this bundle, I think it saved me like $35 just in the shipping by getting all of this together. And obviously that doesn't mean that you buy things that you don't want just to get the shipping cheaper. But the nice thing is when you're on someone's listing, you can scroll all the way down near where the shipping is, and it will show you the name of the user that is selling this yarn. You can click on their name and it will take you to their store and show you every single item that they are selling. A lot of the time they'll have similar types of items. If they have a few different skeins of yarn, then they're likely to have more than one listing of yarn. And so I just know to check and see what else they have for sale. Sometimes I just use the regular price, let Mercari bundle the shipping, and we're good to go. Other times, I believe, like in this case, since I was getting this many, Mercari also gives you the option that when you bundle, you can offer a little bit less than what they have asked for. And you can do this not on bundles too. You can do this on individual skeins of yarn. But I have found that people are more likely to go down a little bit on a few of the items if they can sell all of it at once kind of thing than they are on, oh, I want to buy this one skein. Can you knock a couple of dollars off? Like if they're getting all of this money for all of these different listings, then maybe knocking $10 or $20 off is not that big a deal. Incidentally, this bundle included 5 skeins of Woolen Vine, which I watch her YouTube channel and I've never purchased her yarn. So when I saw a name that I recognized, I was like, oh, that'd be cool to try out her yarn and see if I like it. So all 5 of these are Woolen Vine yarn and I'm very excited. I don't know exactly what I want to make with them yet, but I have a nice quantity here that I could make something pretty cool out of it. Then earlier this year in the spring, I happened to see someone that was selling 3 skeins bundled together of Hue Loco yarn. And this is another that I'd never used them before. I had never felt them. Like, I have only been to a handful of local yarn stores in my life just because I don't have them close to me and I don't travel all that much, to be perfectly honest. So, or at least I haven't in the past. And so it's one of those things that I would hear these names and it was always intriguing. So when you can find them for like less than half of the cost of what they would be if you buy them new, like if you buy these new, I think they're what, $30, 32, different ones are different amounts. These are all from different dye collections that they did. So this one's from the Glow Stick collection. This is the Winter Solstice collection. And this is the Hocus Pocus collection. So several of these were, you know, they did this collection once and they're not going to dye it again. And when you looked at the photos, they actually looked like they were really, really close in color, and they kind of are, but they do have little variations. I purchased this thinking that I was going to make like a knitted fade t-shirt out of it, and I still may do that. It just hasn't been able to happen this year with the other projects and all the other craziness going on, but eventually that might be what this goes to. I might like start with the lighter one and then progress down and fade and have a really cool t-shirt. And now we get to my latest purchase, which I will admit, this looks kind of crazy, but you have to understand these were all less than half of what they would have cost from the dyers. And I had some Mercari money that was just kind of sitting there, so I may have made a bit of a splurge. I bought these as 2 separate bundles. The person who was putting these things up happened to put a bunch up. I got some, and while that was still in the mail coming to me, she put up more yarn and I had to have some of that too. What actually made me find this particular D-stash was I already have 2 skeins of Hedgehog fiber sock in the color Fly. I actually bought these secondhand, but I bought them through Ravelry. And this seller had 2 more skeins of Fly on Mercari, and it was going to cost me less for the 2 skeins than it would to buy 1 more in a store. And I have bought full price Hedgehog Fibers sock yarn. This is one of my favorite ones. They're just such cool colors. They're hand dyed in Ireland. I have bought them from Wool & Co. before, and Wool & Co. I find is really fair. Like if you spend over $100 on one dyer, then they knock like 10% off and they give you free shipping. So I'm a fan of them if I'm going to buy something full price. I had these 2 skeins already, and I actually had contemplated buying 1 more and just sucking it up and paying the price because, again, I wanted to make a t-shirt or a sweater or something like that out of it because it's such a cool color. And I love this minty neon green. Like, so many things about this are colors that I really love. And so when I saw that this person had 2 more skeins and it was going to cost me less for these 2 skeins than it would for 1 new skein, I had to get it. And so while I was looking at this yarn, I went and looked at the rest of her stuff, and oh my gosh, all the rest of this happened. Incidentally, these are hand-dyed yarns, and so while these were from the same dye lot, these are from the same dye lot as well. They are not the same as each other, and that's fine. That's just kind of how hand-dyed yarn goes. So I'll probably strand this. I'll do like helical or something like that to break up the 2 other skeins. But now I have enough that I could make a sweater out of this if I wanted to. And it cost me less than half of what it would cost if I had gone to Wool & Co. to buy this. But I guess you could also argue, did it really save me any money if I went on to buy all the rest of this? I mean, it's all in how you look at it, right? I mean, you're on a video about buying yarn for cheap, so clearly you must agree with me to some extent. I did get 2 more skeins of Hedgehog Fibers sock. So this one is called Skinny Dip. She also had the same color in the Skinny Singles yarn, and it held the dye differently, which I think is interesting. So this is still a fingering weight, but this is singles. So this is not plied yarn, but this is applied sock yarn. And so I'm really excited to play with those because mint, again, is one of my favorite colors. She had the color Polly, And this is one that is not dyed anymore. So this one is a retired color, but look at all those colors. It's very cool. Honestly, I can think of people in my life who would probably like these kinds of colors. So we're going to see. I don't exactly know what I want to make, but I have a few ideas. And this was another skein of the Skinny Singles in Birthday Cake. Once I really started looking, I found a lot of different dyers that she had grouped them in pairs of 2 together. And the pairs of 2 cost less than one skein of this yarn would normally cost. So these are both from the Suburban Stitcher. These are both from Zen Garden Yarns, which I miss Zulily just because of buying Zen Garden Yarns. And if you know, you know. Zulily was the place to get Zen Garden Yarns. But this one is their Serenity 20. So this is an MCN yarn, super soft. And this one is their Serenity Silk. So this is merino, cashmere, and silk. And it's, I don't know if it's a one of, but it's definitely limited edition. It was called It Came Out Great. These two at a distance look like they're the same yarn, but they are actually not. These are from Republic of Wool, and it looks like these were kind of a limited dye run, but they're 2 different yarns. So this is their flossy fingering, and this is their plush fingering. And they do feel, I mean, they're similar, but they are slightly different, I can feel. For one thing, this one's 463 yards, and this one's 437. So there's definitely something different going on here. But this one is called Marmalade, and this one is called Juicy Fruit. These 2 are both from Knitted Wit. And again, they're both fingering weight, but they're different types of yarn. This is just their regular fingering in the color Itsy Bitsy. And this one is Victory fingering in the color Bzzzt. I do remember that these 2 were sold in a bundle together because they both have stellina in the yarn, which I swear is always the hardest to show on a camera. Oh, you can kind of see it a little bit, little glimmers in there. I'm not a huge stellina user, but when it's really subtle like this, I can be a very big fan. So this is from the Fawn and the Fox. It is called Magpie in the unicorn colorway. And this one is from House of a la Mode Fiber Goods Co. Model. It is their glittering gold fingering base, and it is called Spiced Gumdrop. And this one, I can't find anything about it online. So this one's a little bit of a mystery, but it's pretty colors. Here we have Dream and Color Smooshie with Cashmere, which is incredibly soft. And then this one is Spectrum Fiber Twisted Sock in Mermaid Song. This one is from Olan, which I'd never heard of. They're an Irish dyer, and it's just really pretty subtle tones. This one is from BU Fibers. This is called Beach Wedding. But doesn't it remind you of the 90s Taco Bell craze? It's the same kind of colors. This is from Junk Yarns, and these are all named after specific women, apparently. This one's name is Alma, and it's in their Smooth Sock. This one is from Lolo Did It, and this is Ghostbusters, which I'm really excited. I think maybe I'm going to have to make something for Halloween out of this one. And now we are at the end of this bundle. My gosh. So this one is Life in the Long Grass, which I've heard several people talk about. This is from their Sock Club, and it's their October Club Black Currant. This is Swift Yarns, Swift Tender Sock, fingering weight, and this is their Maui colorway. This one is just so soft. Like the way it's even skeined up is just super squishy and amazing. But this is Adam and Eve Yarns in Nightfall. This is another MCN, and oh my gosh, so soft. And this one is from Machete Shop Yarn. It is called Simple Sock, and the color is Havana Banana. And this is actually the first thing that I'm going to be casting on because I really want to make those funky banana socks. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a sock that just from like this ribbing on the top creates the curve. There's no heel. So I thought banana yarn, banana sock, why not? It sounds like a great combination to me. And because the seller knew that I had bought so much yarn from her, she threw in a little extra, which was just super sweet. I know it's a small thing, but she gave me this mini. I don't know what it is. It didn't have a label, but it's very cute colors. And she gave me these couple of stitch markers. There's a dragonfly and a strawberry. Obviously, that's not like an incredibly expensive gift to give, but at the same time, she didn't have to give me anything extra, you know? That's kind of, I find the nice thing with a lot of these people. When they know that you bought a lot of things from them, they're very appreciative and they might throw in a little something extra. So the next thing I have sitting on my table here is a separate section of yarn. These are things that were bought on Mercari, but they are still on my number 4 tip, which is if you make a purchase, put everything in the freezer. So if you are not familiar with buying yarn secondhand, one of the biggest concerns can be moths. Moths are your stash killer. If you get moths in your stash of wool yarn, it can degrade very quickly. It's very sad, unfortunately. And so when you've invested all of this money in these yarns, you definitely want to protect them. So I just use the Ziploc bags. Sometimes I use a grocery bag and just knot it at the top and put it immediately in my freezer, and I let it stay for at least 24 hours, preferably 48 if you can stand it, if you have the time. Then it definitely kills any moth eggs that could be in there, and it could save the rest of your stash. So that's why I didn't have this mixed with the other stack of yarn, just because these are still hanging out in the freezer for their time because I forgot to put them in when I got them. But these were from the same person that I bought the Hue Loco yarn from months and months ago. And she still had all of these up on her shop, and they hadn't sold since then. Like, I bought those months and months ago, like very early in the spring, and she still had all this just sitting around. And when I saw that she had started dropping the prices of them a little bit, it was a little more tempting. I had some restraint before I bought it because I didn't need all of this other yarn at the time. But when she started dropping the price even further, I was like, oh, okay. And so this was another case of, I've never used these yarns before. I'd really like to give them a try. So both of these are from Barnyard Knits. These are from Spun Right Round, which is another that I've almost purchased full price before, and I've never used them, but I think their colors are just beautiful. Then she had another listing that was this little set of Hue Loco minis, and these are in pear and rose hip. And so when I saw all of these, and she had already discounted them a little more, and I'm like, well, you know, they've been up there a really long time. Maybe she'd be willing to go a little bit lower if I bought them all. So I bundled all of those listings together, sent her a price, she accepted it, and I got all of this yarn. She sent me this one as a bonus. Like, she didn't have to do that at all, and it has no label or anything. Feels very squishy. I'm going to do a burn test just to see eventually what it is, but very pretty colors, like pinks and grays, also sock yarn. All of that came together, and therefore I got a great deal. I didn't have to pay separate shipping on all of them because it was all shipped together, and she knocked a little bit off of the price because I got rid of the rest of her inventory of yarn. So my top tips for shopping Mercari are: 1, to know what type of yarn you're looking for and to try different keywords to find it. 2 is to look up how much these things would have cost new and make sure that you're getting it for a good deal. 3 is to pay attention to all the fees associated with Mercari. Make sure you look at what that buyer protection fee is and the shipping, any kind of thing like that. You want to make sure that that end price that you're paying is not unintentionally much higher than what you were anticipating, and therefore it can be the difference between getting something for a good deal and paying just as much or more than you would have from a regular store. 4, always scroll down, go to that seller's shop and see if there's any other things that you want and try to bundle them. It saves you on shipping, it makes the sellers happy to get rid of extra stuff, and sometimes you get some extras in the process. And 5, anything that you get, make sure you wash it or put it in the freezer. For yarn, it immediately goes in a bag in my freezer for at least 24 to 48 hours. For clothes, it means that they get washed before I wear them. Everything is treated just like you would something that you buy at a thrift store, just to make sure that I don't have any kind of problems with pests or stains or things like that. I want everything to be clean and not have to worry about it. So those are my 5 tips for shopping at what has turned out to be essentially my favorite place to buy yarn in the last year. As you can see from how much I've got, I have like half a bin full of yarn over there that all was purchased from Mercari. And I understand that to some, they'll see this and be like, holy crap, that is so much yarn. You don't need all this yarn. And I agree, I don't need all of this yarn, but it's so nice that I have it on hand, honestly. Having all that is like having a yarn store in my house. And so I'm not as tempted to run out and buy something full price, I have so much more to work with than I would have gotten if I had just run out and bought something at full price. Maybe that does beg the question of, consumerism versus what I will use and need. The nice thing with buying things this way, though, is if at some point I decide, that one really isn't my color. Why did I buy that? It is what it is, but I could relist these things. I could put them back on Mercari, and because I got them for such a good price, I'm fairly confident I could at least make back what I paid, if not make a little bit more. So I don't feel quite as bad about making this purchase, because if I had gone to a yarn store and bought all of this, my gosh, I would have gone bankrupt in the process. But doing it little by little over time and getting them for these kinds of prices, it just makes all the difference. So those are my tips. I hope that this is helpful to someone. If you have purchased anything from Mercari, leave me a comment below and let me know what it was. If you've bought yarn, if you happen to find this same de-stash sale, I mean, her stuff is beautiful. And I talked to her and she said, oh, I just have so much more yarn than I can knit. So she was selling some of it, and man, she just had beautiful taste though. So I'm really grateful. It's unfortunate that she bought all this stuff new, and some of them have the price tags on it, so I know what she paid, and I'm getting it for such a good deal, and I hope that I can do it justice in the way that she couldn't. If you liked this, please do give me a thumbs up, subscribe, stick around. If you like information about yarn and knitting and sewing, and I like to share the tips of things I know about getting yarn for a good deal. So if you are interested in that, stick around. But again, don't forget, if you are interested in looking around on Mercari and you have not joined them before, it's free to join. I will put my friend referral link below. And if you could sign up with that, I would really appreciate it. I'm not being paid for anything about this. This is literally just stuff I bought with my own money. But I think if you use my referral link, we both get something. So maybe that can be beneficial and we can all get more yarn together. So until next time, I hope that all of your secondhand yarn purchases are a fantastic deal and they're everything that you hoped when you saw the listing.